Hi, everyone. Welcome to Type Talks. So today we're going to talk about how any users get asked questions like, do you have ADHD or are you high? Sometimes, like not all of them, but with some any users, they have people commenting on how the weird metaphor they made was really weird. And then people are giving them a weird look. It's like, what? Where did that come from? It doesn't apply for everyone, but this does apply for quite a few any users.
Yeah, I've had a few people actually, like a couple people, like ask me if I was like actually like high, or they think I smoke marijuana. Like I worked with this one woman in a job, and we worked a lot of hours together, and there was some downtime as like a caregiver, and it was super laid back. So I love telling jokes. I love kind of like improvising creatively like that. So I would just kind of like let myself just go. And then I think one time, I made a comment about me, people probably thinking I was high, and she's like, I think you're high. It's like, she was like, you can say that you're not, but I really believe that you probably are a regular pot smoker or something. But it was like all natural, I'm just doing like a improvised like stand-up routine, just, letting my mind just go. And, yeah, people like that, or you just say like weird metaphors and like people just don't know how to respond either. They're just like, what? And sometimes they're not very good though. Like I worked on an alpaca farm, and like one of the alpacas had a baby. And then I just made the observation that like the pregnancy goes on for like, I think like almost a year. And then all of a sudden the baby's just out, like it's just done. And then my mind thinks about, well, it's like painting a house. You spend all this prep work, and then the actual painting is the shortest point. So, very intelligently I go, it's just like painting. And they were just, the farm owners were like, oh, okay. They just didn't know what to say. So,
yeah. Sometimes, like you say, is some weird metaphor, or like sometimes, like I just come up with weird stuff, like making weird association about things. Like when I'm thinking about like these panels, they reminded me like I used to think my body naturally produced cannabis because my fart can smell like it sometimes. So I just asked my friend, like, is that possible? Like maybe that's why people think I'm high all the time. Maybe that's the reason why. And maybe that's why sometimes I feel high all the time too. It's not only people's perception, also my own perception. It's like both ways. And it's also like a confusion too. People get confused of what I say. I get confused of what people say, or I get confused about everything. So it's like, okay, now are you okay? Or I'm just being mean. It's like, yeah, nothing wrong. I'm fine. Yeah, I didn't take anything. Like nothing I'm aware of is like, nothing I'm aware of. But sometimes I don't pay attention to what I eat. So I might eat something. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I can totally relate to that because you just come out with like weird stuff or perspectives, and like, it's not anything. It's like your mind kind of like fires up, and I feel especially if you're just like telling jokes and it just detaches from reality, and you just kind of like, you don't know what you're going to say next or anything. And it just starts like kind of like producing stuff. Like even when I'm alone, I'll have ideas just like pop into my head that have no like practical application, or just like really weird. Like why hasn't anyone taken like a starfish and turned it into like a baked good and then like filled it with pulled pork? Like that just would seem like a good idea. You could each pull a leg off. Like why hasn't like that been done? And it's just like popping into my head and stuff. So it's just like weird kind of all over there ideas that just kind of like, they just kind of step out of the darkness, and they're there and stuff. And there's just can be like, I think especially when you're talking to someone and they're receptive to it, like joking around, then you can really start like pumping out like a lot of nonsense.
Yeah. And you will get weirder and weirder as the conversation goes on.
Yeah. I do coaching sessions with Yushen and DJ, and they're really funny. Like, I don't know where the conversation is going to go sometimes, but it's always like, oh, this thought. And it's like, oh, that reminds me of that association there. I noticed with NESI, it can make very specific associations too. It'll get into a very specific kind of metaphor, a very specific kind of analogy. It's like, wait, how did you combine this with this? Like DJ relating a very specific breed of woodpeckers and buffaloes together. It's like, how do people do that? I'm thinking maybe we can end off the panel with the last time someone looked at you weird because you said something weird.
Well, I do have an experience because like that it's not too recent. It's from like this past spring. But yeah, I ended up having to have surgery and spend overnight at this hospital. And it was just an appendicitis. So that's pretty routine. So I was able to I was out of the hospital in 24 hours. So I was just waiting for my mother to pick me up because they said I couldn't drive. And they have this little cafe or something in there. And there was this like a pecan sweet roll. It was kind of like twisting around, but it had these ridges and stuff. And I just seen something on like one of the Planet Earth series where they were covering like tidal pools, like where these pools just fill up with water. And then there's like starfish and different crustaceans and mollusks in there. And I saw this thing and I said to like, I don't know, the cashier, the barista, and I was just like, I'm like, this looks like one of those animals that live in the tidal pools. Do you ever think about that? And then she's just like, what? She's like, what? And I'm like, oh yeah, the starfish and everything. And she's just like, oh, but she didn't even seem like amused at all. She seemed like almost a little annoyed that I brought it up or anything. And then I'm just like trying to recover. And I'm like, oh yeah, I just watched something on like Planet Earth and they had a documentary about that. And she's like, oh yeah, those are great. And I'm like, oh boy. So that was just really, it made the whole situation like uncomfortable. Or for her, I guess I just didn't really care. I thought maybe it was kind of funny, but she just didn't know at all how to respond. But for some reason, this thing made me think of, some clam that lives or mollusk that lives in a tidal pool. And it just like, it definitely like soured any sense of like ease or comfort. I think it just kind of like weirded her out that I would associate a baked good with something that like some type of sea life or something like that when it wasn't obviously like that. But it, in my defense, it did kind of have that shape. So there was that went really well.
Sounds fun. Yeah. I guess I don't know if it's just me have like really bad memory, but I found like I don't really like remember every weird things I said, but I just like to like situational. Like if there's something, I would just keep adding to it, and sometimes I just talk too fast, and sometimes I just keep saying things, and then people just the reaction is good, but I don't remember what happened, so I'm just confused afterwards. I thought we are having a connection, and then now you're just looking at me like I'm crazy.
Yeah.
Something like
yeah, the silence.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, and so with extroverted intuition, the idea is they're very in the moment and they come in the moment and they can disappear like vapors. And so it's like, the idea is now gone. It is taken sail after I've discussed it. And so the message I want to communicate with this video is that extroverted intuition is very good at making desperate connections between topics. And what this can cause is people don't know how to take it because they're like, oh, that is so interesting. And they oftentimes get told that they seem high or that they seem like they have ADHD, even when they don't. This doesn't apply for everyone, but for the any users in which this does apply to, you know who you are. You know that this happens to you in life. And so, yeah, I hope you liked those illustrations of extroverted intuition, and I hope it gave you more clarity on how this function works. Thanks everyone for watching. I'll see you all in the next episode.